Today, I have a great call with a guy I've talked to a bunch of times, a client of mine. He helps people get credit and he helps himself get credit and travel for free. He does a lot of cool stuff. He's going to tell us how he opened all his credit cards. We're going to go through the 4 steps to get a US credit card as a non resident without a social security number. So stay tuned to the end. He's going to list his top cards and he's going to go through all the steps here. So this is very valuable. Tyler, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, James. I appreciate it.
So tell me about some of the stuff you've been able to get with credit cards, what credit cards you have, and then let's go into like the steps. Give us some background first so we have some context.
Yeah, the credit rewards journey has been amazing, man. I mean, we just got back from a vacation a couple months ago, and just by using travel rewards and points, I'd saved over $7,000 on this trip. I had a business class flight for me and my wife, $2,500 tickets. We paid $67 for those using points. We also had business class from London to Switzerland. Those were $1,600 tickets. We paid $125 for both of us. And then we had a five-star luxury hotel in Budapest, a little under $500 a night for this place. We stayed 2 nights and we paid $0, all with points.
So a lot of my clients are some guys that come to mind have huge ad budgets, and they're basically spending 100 grand a month on ads or on some kind of marketing stuff, and it's just money going out every month. Basically, a lot of them want credit, and the point of having the credit, first of all, it's so that you can scale and spend before the money comes back. So obviously, you can scale a drop shipping business if you have credit. So that's
That's
point
right.
one. Point two is to just get free stuff with all the money you're spending anyways. How do we get started? What are the steps for building credit in the US? Like what do we need to, what does a regular person need to do?
So whether you're going for business credit or you're trying to get into the travel rewards journey, the number one thing you need to do starting off is to build up that US personal credit profile. Okay, so that is the meat and potatoes of everything. Once you have that personal credit profile built up, then you can start venturing off and getting business credit. Okay, you can get the high limit credit cards, getting into those premium travel rewards cards. And it all starts with having access to a US address. This is very important. You need that address to verify yourself when you're opening accounts, when you're applying for credit cards. And the kicker is, James, is that you don't have to have your own domicile there. Okay, it doesn't have to be your own property. You can use a friend or a family's place.
So you need a US address. Is that more or less important than having an ITIN number?
That's more important. Yeah, I mean they're equally important, but you're definitely gonna need that address for sure. That's
So
gonna
so
get
what
that.
if you have no friends in the US? What's the solution in the because I have talked to people who have friends and colleagues and families. Like I have people like, oh, my cousin rents a room in California, and you can use that address. But it's like, what's the proof of address document you give people? Like a sublease, a lease document?
Exactly. Yeah, it's like to make it legal, you would just sign a sublease. Super easy to do. There, you can get templates online and just fill them out with you and your landlord or your lessee. And
Your cousin or your brother or your uncle or
cousin,
someone you
brother,
met on the internet.
cousin's
Yeah.
cousin down the road, doesn't matter. Yeah, as long as you have that paperwork, you're good.
And then once you get the first card, then you can use that as proof of address, right? You basically use the
Exactly.
other.
Yeah.
So once you get that Amex, you use your Amex statement to prove you have an address for the other bank.
Yeah, then you're going to get that bank statement with your name and address on it, and that's going to help a lot.
So you also need an ITIN, right? An
You,
individual taxpayer identification number.
you do. If you're a foreigner or a non-US resident, you don't have a social security number to build credit on, you're going to need that ITIN. That's going to help you a lot. Just allows you to build credit, right? So every time that you get a new credit card, it's going to report all that activity, all your payments, your payment history, your utilization, how much of the credit that you're using. That's all going to report onto that ITIN number.
Do you know why someone with an ITIN cannot use like Credit Karma or Equifax or whatever those credit reporting bureaus? Because I can go on with a social and get my credit score from Credit Karma, but with an ITIN, it doesn't work.
Yeah, I think they require a lot of verification. There's a lot of hurdles to go through. So one easy way that I found was I signed up with a company called checkfreescore.com.
And that one works
And
for ITINs?
yeah, it's been the only one so far. Now they give you a Vantage score, okay? That's a little bit different than your FICO score, but today they're pretty much on par. There's not too much of a difference. They report everything. So it's the same as if you were going to go on Experian or Credit Karma. They show you everything from your payment history, your utilization, all your hard inquiries. It has all the accurate information there. So I've been using that, man, when I first started out. Once I opened up my first bank account, okay, I opened an account with PenFed. This is a credit union out of Washington. And I was actually able to open this account online as well. Again,
Hmm.
a few hurdles to get through. There's a little bit of back and forth between me and the bank with verification and everything. But once I had that account opened, I could check my FICO 9 score right from the bank's portal.
And you did that after you had the ITIN, PenFed. Yeah, there's a ton of banks and credit unions out there. If you have the ITIN, then you can fill it in where the social should be. So while it's not necessary to run an LLC and have a business and have a business bank account, if you want to have a personal account, it makes it a lot easier. It's not required at all banks, but for online, it's certainly required. And then if you want to build a credit score, it's essential. What
That's right.
else is required? Do they need a U.S. phone number? So
So there's an app that I use that gives me an American number that I can use while I'm traveling, and it's called Found, Phound.
that's cool. I'm gonna check that out. I'm taking notes too because I'm
Mhm.
not coming in with the knowledge. I'm trying to figure this out. So you got your address, you got your ITIN, you got your personal bank account, which isn't necessary. It's not vital to having the credit cards, right?
It's good, depends on which route you go down. And there's a couple different ways that we can go about getting your first US card. And one of them is going through an American Express global transfer, which is basically this program that Amex has set up for anyone that's moving to the United States, planning to move, or perhaps they're going there for work or whatever. It just allows you to use your home country's relationship with Amex. Let's say I had a credit card in Canada with American Express. After 3 months of you holding that relationship in good standing, no late payments or anything like that, you can apply for this global transfer. And instead of them using your credit profile or your credit score from your home country, they'll just base it off the relationship with Amex that you had in that home country, right?
How
And then
did
they'll issue you a first U.S. credit card just through that process.
and you should have your ITIN before you do it, or you can put the
Yeah,
ITIN
you
on it
need the
later.
ITIN. You need the ITIN. You need your address set up. The bank account they want to see as well.
They want to see a bank account as well, so you need a personal bank account.
They want to see that you are actually planning to move there at least, right? That you're getting
Yeah,
yourself
that's
set up.
the bank account would be great for proof of address instead of having a lease. And then they would be like, okay, you have an address, you have a bank account. Because obviously, they're not going to check your immigration papers. They're not going to check the I-94s of how many days you're in the U.S. It doesn't seem like they're checking that kind of stuff. They really want the documentation behind it.
Yeah,
And from that perspective, you're based. What I tell people is they're posturing as if they're moving to the U.S. It sounds better, I think,
yeah, that's
because you're
right.
basically saying, "Oh yeah, I'm taking a job in the U.S. Here's my address. Let me transfer," and then they kind of
You're
do it.
getting transferred or whatever. Yeah, that's right.
And the Amex from Canada charges you international fees, and the U.S. one doesn't. So it's like, right? Is that right?
It depends on which card it is. Certain cards charge foreign transaction fees. Some of the bigger premium cards don't. So that was kind of one of the bullets that I had to eat when I first started building my U.S. credit profile. Was I couldn't just jump into the U.S. and get those premium travel rewards credit cards with the higher annual fees and the perks and the benefits. So I had to start with some of the smaller cards. And me being in Canada, I was paying foreign transaction fees. But the money that I've saved and the perks that I've gotten from all the travel rewards today has greatly dwarfed the amount of foreign transaction fees I started paying to get myself to these premium credit cards.
Well, it's like point. It's like a couple. It's like 0.5% or something, right? Or is it like two
It's
percent,
not much.
one
Yeah,
percent? It's not very much.
you're gonna see like it's not much on your statements. You're seeing cents, right? So
Well, what most U.S. cards don't. So, um, how do you recommend people do this going forward? Like, does this work for someone from any country? If someone's from Belgium, if someone's from Bali, if someone's from, um, whatever, like
yeah,
India, well, can they do this too?
so pretty much anyone can do it as long as they get that ITIN and that US address. Now, like I mentioned earlier, the method or the strategy that you use to get it done is going to be different depending on which country you come from, because only certain countries are eligible for that global transfer program.
And that's a great
But
way to start, right? Because you can get a good credit card to start, and then you can build your credit history, and then you can apply for more stuff.
that's right, yeah. So if you can't do the global transfer, there's certain countries that you can use to apply for your first Amex, and Amex will use a third party that's called Nova Credit. So basically, these guys will actually look at your home country's credit profile, and they'll deem whether or not you're eligible to get that first
India
American
is
express.
actually on the list, I think.
I think they are, yeah.
There's like 14 countries on the list. Some you would expect, some you wouldn't expect.
India's
Um,
on there. Kenya, Mexico, Nigeria, Switzerland.
yeah, so there's some random countries on there in terms
Yeah,
of like what you would expect, but and then there's some that aren't on there, like Italy's not on there, and but it's basically about your credit reporting system. Again, this only really works if you have good credit in your home country. So if you have no
yeah,
if you have
yeah.
no credit,
Basically,
it doesn't really do anything anyways.
if you can't use either of those two methods, you come from a country that's not on the list, then you're going to have to start from the bottom. Okay, it's still possible, but you're going to have to
Way
start using
stronger.
secured credit cards.
How do you open secured credit cards? Give me two examples of a secured credit card that work.
Yeah, so two of them I still use them. Like once I got my first Amex, my goal was to build credit, so it wasn't enough that I just got that one Amex card,
And
right?
you got to keep them open, right? The length of credit history, right?
Yeah. So always your first card you want to keep open. That's the one that's got your initial start date of your credit history. So if you cancel that card, you're going to lose all that credit history. And credit history being 15% of your credit score is going to give your score a little bit of a dip, right? So two cards I started out with, James, were U.S. Bank secured Visa and a Capital One Platinum, I believe it was. And they're super easy to get. You just apply for them. You're almost guaranteed to get it because you're actually going to use your own money, deposit it onto the card, and whatever you deposit becomes your credit limit. So it just gives you an easy in to get yourself situated, get your foot in the door, and start to be able to prove yourself to these banks that you're responsible with your money, and you're not going to take off with the credit that they issue you.
And you need the ITIN and the address of of course, for these.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, these change all the time. I'm sure there's more and there's other secrets and tips and tricks, but this is a good start. So I was disheartened for a while. I'm going to tell you the truth. Because we couldn't pull credit history and everything. It was only like maybe like 7 months ago that a client's like, "Hey, I got this letter from Amex when I applied, and they said your credit score is this much, and we approve, but we're still closing your account, whatever." But like, I'm like, "Oh, you have a credit score with your ITIN," because I hadn't seen it done in person, so to see that you've really grinded it out over the last 4 years, learned a bunch of tricks and a bunch of tips through here is really exciting for me because again, making money and like you're not going to make a living off of credit card points because you have to spend money to get points. But if you are spending a ton of money, the credit card points can be very quantifiably valuable, especially cash back. So I want to ask now, what are the best cash back cards or the best cards for people who are spending a ton on ads?
yeah. So definitely the Amex. You want to get in with Amex for sure. The
The
Amex
gold
Platinum,
one,
Amex
right?
Gold.
I think
Yeah,
the gold one's better for cash back on the ads,
yeah.
right?
So with the Amex Gold, if you have a personal Amex Gold, it's really good for dining. And if you're shopping in the U.S. supermarkets, getting your groceries, you get 4 points for every dollar spent. That's an industry high, right? So every time you go to a restaurant, spend with that gold, you're going to get four points back for every dollar you spend. Same with if you're shopping at U.S. supermarkets. Um, but the restaurants are actually worldwide. So if you're someone who's traveling a lot, you're a digital nomad, and you want to get into the credit game, it's a really great card to have. But
The
the
status too,
business
you get in
gold,
a bunch of lounges too. A lot of cool stuff like that. The
yeah,
perks.
the platinum's got a lot of
Oh,
travel
the
perks for
platinum
sure.
does. What
Yeah,
about this? I've been seeing a lot of commercials. Obviously, I'm in the U.S., but they have this Capital One X or Century X card or whatever. Is that a good one?
Venture X, yeah, Venture
Venture
X.
X.
Venture X is a great card, yeah. One of the key benefits with that card is there's a $300 annual travel credit. And you're not just, most cards, if they have like an annual travel credit, will make you use that when you book travel through their bank's travel portal, right? So the difference between most of those cards and that Venture X is that you can use that card, book any sort of travel, and just erase $300 off your bill. It's called the erase feature.
Oh, cool. I want to ask one thing I forgot to ask, and it might be backtracking, but what's the difference between personal credit and business credit, and how does business credit even work? Because I actually don't know that either. Because in my experience, every time you apply for a credit card, it's really tied to the credit score of the owner. But how does business credit work in that respect?
As we talked about earlier, that personal credit is going to get you so much further if you build that up. Because every time, if you want to apply for a business credit card, that most banks are always going to check your personal credit profile. All right.
Yeah.
Now, there's ways that you can build up the business credit, but it takes time. And for the most part, they're going after that personal credit profile. Okay. They want to
That's
see if
what
you,
that's what I tell people, because in the US people would just open a business, get a ton of credit, close the business, never pay back.
yeah.
So that's why they make you as the individual sign on. So business credit for most consumer and most of these exercises doesn't matter as much. I tell people it matters more for corporate terms, for payables and that kind of things. Like, and that's more with like Dun and Bradstreet type stuff. It's like
Yeah.
for it doesn't apply for most of the clients I work with.
Yeah, definitely. One of the major benefits of that business credit and why a lot of people do it is because your utilization on those business credit cards don't report onto your personal credit profile. So let's say, you went and applied for 3 business cards and you're worried that it's going to bring down your personal credit score. You're going to buy a house or something like that. None of that utilization is going to show. So let's say you've used $50,000 on your credit card and you're not paying it off right away because you've made an investment or something like that, and it's not paying out right away. None of that shows up on your credit profile on the personal side. So huge benefit for guys that want to invest that business money.
What are some quick tips and tricks for actually growing, like my I guess micro stuff for growing the credit? Because obviously, like, there's, this isn't a technical video, more so as like a big picture, how do you do it for a foreign person, but then it gets into like, do you leave a small balance every month? You always have to pay it on time. But my question for me personally is, should I leave a small balance every month? I always pay my cards off before the end of the month because I don't like to pay interest. But I think the score goes higher if you leave a small balance and then pay it off,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. Yeah, it seems a funny thing. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think that if they just pay those cards off, their bill comes out, they pay that card down to zero, boom, they're good. But I mean, the banks want to see that you're using a little bit of that card, right? So there's something that we call a statement closing date, and this comes with everyone's credit card. So if you check your bank statement for that credit card, it's going to show you the due date of the payment, but it's also going to show you a statement closing date. So usually that comes a few days, up to a week before the bill actually comes out. And the reason why that date's important is because that is the date that the banks actually report your balances to the credit bureaus. Let's say you've gotten your bill, you've paid it off in full, you spent a bunch of money on it, and that balance is, let's say you spent 50% of your utilization of your credit limit, and you plan to pay it off when the bill comes out. On that statement closing date, that's what the credit bureaus, that's the amount they're going to see. So they're going to see that you've spent 50% of your credit limit. You have a 50% utilization ratio, which absolutely kills your score in the short run.
It kills them, but that changes month to month, obviously.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, it's
it
every month it changes that number changes. Your utilization changes every month
yeah, I mean,
because my score is not that good, but I use tons of credit cards. I just pay them all off every month. I also
yeah,
have some missed payments and stuff. Be careful opening too many credit cards because they charge you fees, and if you don't pay them, then dude, I had this credit card. They charged me a $40 annual fee, and I didn't know it. It was on the wrong email,
gosh,
and I didn't pay it for 2 months. I got dinged. Then I paid it, and then they charged me interest on the late payment, and I didn't pay that for 2 months, and it was like $3. So I have all these like $4 delinquent payments on my credit score. It's
that's crazy.
I can't I so I basically consolidated and closed most of my cards, but um I don't know. So make sure you pay your bills on time.
You got to get one of those trackers. There's all kinds of apps and websites out there where you can go in and input all your credit cards and the numbers and everything, and they'll send you a ding, James. They'll send you a ding when your annual fees are coming up,
Yeah,
any deadlines for like a minimum spend requirement or anything like that. But
I don't
it
know.
happens. Man.
So
It happens to the best of us.
it's happened to me too many times. I don't care. I like Dave Ramsey too, because I follow a lot of guys who are anti-debt. So Dave Ramsey calls it a debt score. Or, no, he calls it like how it's the higher your credit score is, the more interest you paid in your life. So it's so there's a lot of perspectives on it. I don't believe in going into debt, but I do believe in getting free stuff with credit cards, especially for my guys who are spending 100,000 a month running ads. So, Tyler, I think we went over a lot of concepts. We went over what you need to open credit cards, which is, and I'm going to correct me if I'm wrong, but that's going to be an ITIN, a US address, probably a US phone number, The steps are going to be open a U.S. bank account and then open secured credit cards. If you can do the Amex transfer, global transfer, that's great. If you can use Nova Credit, that's great. But you basically just have to build it up, apply for the accounts, open the accounts, pay them off, and then you can check your credit at checkfreescore.com and push through it. Anyone watching, if you have any questions, comment below with your questions. If you want to work directly with Tyler and consult with him, that's fine. We're not like affiliate or anything, but I want to get some free info for you guys. How can people find you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm heavy on Instagram. So if you can look me up on Instagram, my name is Zero Card Mastery. And I'm sharing daily credit tips, daily travel hacks all the time. So super valuable page. If you want to book a consultation with me, you can go on there. There's a link there. Click on that and see how we can help you.
Yeah, and as always, YouTube is here for the DIY crowd and for people who are trying to learn. There's a lot of good stuff. Bookmark this video, share it with your friends. Okay, thanks for being here, YouTube, and I'll see you on the next one.
See you guys.
Bye.